Hey, hello, everyone. This is Joe Larson. You're watching the 505 Racing Show. Welcome. Hope everybody had a good week. I know here on Long Island, the weather's been a little wacky, from extreme single-digit temperatures to what seemed like a heat wave today at 44 degrees. But anyway, WJMyRaceNews.com just posted my press release that we put out about my tour endeavors in 2014. So I guess if it's on myracenews.com, it's official. It's as official as it gets. I know we've been talking about it for quite some time, and as we get closer and closer, it's get a little nervous here, but I guess that's a good thing. But anyway, while we're talking about this tour ride, my crew chief, DJ Hickton, who is also in the chat room as Silverback, was in a horrific automobile accident up near his home, up in Connecticut. He was hospitalized, and what I understand, it's a broken foot and a broken elbow and bumps and bruises and glass in the back of his head and all kinds of bad things. But he's a trooper, and he's home recovering. He was released from the hospital this weekend, and he's doing very well. Sees those of us who were in the chat room a little earlier, says he's a little sore. And I saw pictures, and he's lucky to be sore. Let me tell you, he had an angel on his shoulder that day, so thank God, DJ, that you're doing okay. It's going to be a little road to recovery, but I'm sure we could get you a little shop stool that you could roll around in the shop as you're working on the race car, because I'm not driving 3 hours to do it for you. So but I wish it well. And everybody, little prayers for DJ's recovery, because guy's not only my crew chief, I consider him a friend too. So you always get nervous when you hear these things. You always get nervous. But I'll tell you what, I'm glad I spoke to him before I saw the pictures, because I would have been more than nervous. But anyway, good luck, buddy, and I hope you're feeling a lot better. You sounded better when I talked to you the other day, so it's all good. It's all good. Anyway, this weekend we had the 24 hours at the Rolex, I guess 24 hours at Daytona. We'll have some footage I want to talk about later on in the show, talking about horrific crashes, but we have some footage. Nascar announced qualifying is going to be changed. We're going to talk about that as well. I like it. I like it, but we'll get into that when we talk about it. And then just some things that are going on now. We're getting closer and closer to the big one, the Daytona 500, which is caps off the 2014 season. It's the only sport that has its Super Bowl as the first event of the year. And I never understood that, but I guess it's the created interest. And I know the Daytona 500 years ago was always a big event. And believe it or not, back in the heyday, back in the 60s and early 70s, the dual 150s, I guess as they call them now, they used to be the twin 125s, were point-paying races. So however you finish in those events to qualify, you also receive points for that. So it shows you how the points have evolved over the years. And there's no real way, and I talked about this a couple of times, and last week especially, there's no real way to make a fair point system that everybody's going to like. Somebody's going to dislike something about it. Somebody's going to love something about it. I was just talking to somebody just the other night, and we were talking about the year that, in the points, whoever finished first and second at Daytona, whatever points that were awarded for that event, they carried for the rest of the season in every event. So basically, if you won Daytona and finished second in Daytona, you were 1 and 2. You were 1 and 2 no matter what happened, as long as you showed up to the events, because you got those extra Daytona points. Whoever came up with that plan, I don't know if they really put any thought into it, or they felt that they knew that Richard Petty was going to win the event and they wanted him to win the championship. I don't know, and I would hope to think that stuff doesn't go on, but we'd be foolish to say otherwise. But moving forward with the points, there is really no good way to change the points, and I don't think this chase, no matter how they revamp it, I don't think it's serving its purpose. and that needs to be revamped. And I also think consistency should be rewarded. If you do the math, if you take total number of races divided by the total number of points paid out, whether it's in the Cup level, nationwide, Camping World Truck Series, or your weekly racing series, basically a competitor could finish fourth and win the championship. Or a competitor could win a race and not win a championship. Or a competitor could win races and not win a championship. So it needs consistency in a team, in a race team. In my opinion, that's what should happen. It should be consistency that determines a champion. If you have a guy or a gal that's running up front all the time, obviously I think that person should be the champion. Or the person who wins the most races. Maybe there should be a bonus, and other than the 1 point that you get now, or the way the tour used to do it. If you won the race, you got 5 extra points because you led the last lap, which was kind of silly, I thought, at the time. And now they went to that single point, single position, and point system that most everybody has. But when you look at a point system, and I like to play with numbers from time to time, again, I really feel that if you won the race, you should get a lot more points than the guy who finished second. It's just my opinion. And I also think that to make the race interesting, instead of just having that competitor ride around for 50 laps, 100 laps, 125 laps, 200 laps, whatever it is, 500 laps even, just riding around and then making a move on the last lap, I think that point system should reward leading at certain intervals. Who's leading at halfway. Now, you know what, there's people who are going to say, well, you can manipulate that as well. You have teams and they're working together, especially some of these 3-car teams. All right, we need the points. This guy's ahead. Let's get him up to the front. And they run in a pack and they're in a little draft and they get him up there. But I just don't understand how the points should do that. Let's see, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but you should be able to run every race, and every race should be treated separately. And there was a time way back when where, based on what the race paid, is what the points were given out. So there were drivers who only showed up at 7 or 8 races, but they showed up at the big dollar events that paid the most money. They ended up in the top 10 in points when they only raced half the shows, and other competitors who didn't miss an event and in those big races had some bad luck, they weren't even in the top 15. So when you look at that, you're like, there's some inequities in the point system. Of course, they changed that point system, and it's evolved over the years, but I don't know what the real answer is or the right answer is when it comes to the points. But it should be equitable across the board, with the exception of the guy or gal who wins. That's what you're there for. You're there to win races. You're not there to ride around and points. You'll see a lot, especially weekly tracks. You'll see someone who's up in the points, first, second, third, with a shot at a championship. They start points racing, and they say, "Well, there's 5 races left, and if I could finish 5th every week, that's going to give me XYZ points, and if I have XYZ points, I'll still be the champion." Now, is that a good race for the fans? Because that's why they do this. They put on a show for the fans. That's why we do this. That's why we race. Because there's people that come, pay good money to sit in the stands and watch races. So I don't know. I just think there needs to be a better way to do the points. I think it should be more competitive. I think the people who are leading the races should get some kind of bonus. I think the people who are winning the races should get a lot more points than the car who's not. Just my opinion. I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be people who disagree with that. But we'll see what happens. But it's you guys just having a little fun there in the chat room. But anyway, another point. So and you look at some of these other series in Formula One and dirt and all these other forms of racing across. Basically, the point system is such that if you're not in the top 10, your points are almost zero. And you get so many points for a win and so many points for second and third, and that's it. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. And then even money. And you know that's a sore subject with racing across the board, is the payouts. I know a lot of people, they want to blame NASCAR for the poor payoffs. NASCAR has nothing to do with the payoffs. It's the promoters who promote the events, it's the promoters who work in conjunction with the track operators, whether it's a corporation or a person or a combination thereof. They determine what the purse is. Whether it's through sponsorship, whether it's through advanced sales, whatever it is, they come up with a purse. Now, it's up to us, and I'm saying us as competitors, it's up to us to determine, do we want to race for that purse? So what happens? So let's take a modified tour race, and let's take a race that, let's say, used to pay $6,000 to win. A lot of people would show up at that event because $6,000 to win 10 years ago. Because I'll go back to 2003 when I was first a full-time touring official. Because prior to that, I did a couple of races a year. And go back to 2003, and I know we'll take, for argument's sake, Stafford. One of the Stafford races paid like $7,000 to win. It wasn't a bad payoff 10 years ago. Kind of a decent payoff now. Some of these tracks, I wish they had that kind of money to win. Now you go back and you say, okay, so 7,000 win. Now what happened was now it goes down to 6,000, then maybe 5. And I'm not saying Stafford did this. I'm just using an example. So now let's say that race now pays 4,000 to win. Motors getting away with it. Cars are still coming. Maybe not as many cars, but they're still coming. But what do you do? Just like that race that they had up in Canada. And it paid like a normal flash race, as they called them. Where you qualified and ran heat races and got the show, and it barely paid $2,500 to win. Drive all the way up to Canada. Now, what happened with that race, it was run in September. Labor Day weekend, in fact, when we went up to Canada for that race. And unless you were in the top 20 in points or on the cusp, you didn't go. I mean, you went because you wanted to maintain the top 20. Now, here, if I'm 23rd in points and there's no way I'm going to make the top 20, because that's a big thing being in the top 20, I wouldn't have gone to that event. And a lot of competitors chose not to. And a lot of people say, well, we're not racing for the money. Yeah, you are. You are. I get a kick out of people. Well, I'm not racing for the money. And I say to that person, well, if you're not racing for the money, why don't you do this? Why don't you not collect your payoff every week or every other week or wherever you race, keep it there in an envelope? Or if you're paid by a check, take those checks and sign them over to some charitable organization. Because you're not there for the money, so you're not going to miss it. And when I say that, oh, no, I can do that. You are there for the money. And that's what it's all about. If you approach it as a hobby, then it's a hobby and you do what you got to do. When you get to the touring level, it's no longer a hobby. Some of these teams have full-time crew chiefs, full-time crew members, dedicated buildings where they work on the cars and have a shop just for race cars. That's not cheap. Whether it's here in New York, on Long Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, wherever that shop is, it's not cheap to operate a shop and a building, whether it's 10,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet. It's still going to cost you something. And you still got to write a check for the rent and the gas and the electric and insurance every month. What do? You approach it as a business. And your business has to be profitable. And I think as a racer, you got to take a look and say, do I want to go to that event as a businessman? Wait a minute, I'm going to go to this event. It's going to cost me, this and fuel for the hauler, plus tires, plus parts, and blah, 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 and depreciation. And you add it all up, and all right, it's going to cost me like $6,000 to go to an event, but if I win, I'm going to get $2,500. And if I don't win, I'm going to get $300. In good business, do you go to that race? I'm saying you don't. And then what happens if enough competitors start thinking this way, And please don't think that, I'm telling people to boycott events. I'm talking as a businessman. If enough people start saying, I'm not going to that race, not paying enough, then maybe these promoters and these track operators are going to take a look and say, all right, listen, my facility holds 8,000 and I'm getting $50 a head, so maybe I could take an extra 50,000 and spread it amongst the competitors, and spread it amongst the competitors evenly. Don't make it where it's, I remember I went to a race that was 2,000 to win. It was an open competition race up at what was now Bethel Speedway. It was called White Lake at the time. It was 2,000 to win. Everybody, oh, yeah, 2,000 to win. But there was no posted payoff anywhere. All of a sudden, you go to the payoff on the night, second place paid $100. $100. 2,000 to win, but 100 for second. I think it was 75 for third, 60 for fourth, 50 for fifth, and I think everybody else got like 40 and 30 down the line. But you know what? Nobody went back to that race, and it never really had that race again. But you can't do that as a promoter, as a track operator, you have to be fair to the competitors, and you have to give a payoff that's decent. And again, I know there's a couple of folks in the chat room. They blame NASCAR for the poor purses. NASCAR has nothing to do with that. They don't make the purses. Can they suggest it? Yeah. Can they help with it? I'm sure they could if they had the abilities. But then what happens is you get into liability stuff and lawyers, and once lawyers get involved, it's all messed up. It's all fouled up. So we can't have that. Anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to show that wreck at the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona. I want to show that wreck, and there's something I want to say about that wreck. So when we come back, I think we have video of it, and we'll talk about that. We'll be back. Hey, we're back. Hey, this weekend at the Rolex 24 at Daytona, there was a horrific crash. Matteo Malucelli and Mimo Gidley are alert after this scary crash. Gidley has a broken back, and Malucelli, I believe that's how it says, is out of the hospital. We have video of it. I'm looking. We're going to bring that up now. I saw this today for the first time, and I was like, I couldn't believe this, that this could happen. When you see it, you know, you're going to probably ask yourself the same question if you haven't seen it already. So it was one of those things where I don't know if these teams have spotters or whatnot, but it looks like one of the competitors went to pass somebody on the inside, and it was a car that was losing power, just slowing up down the straight there. And all of a sudden, you know, the guy decided he's going to pass on the left where everybody else was going to the right to avoid this car that was slowing down. So I believe we're trying to bring that video up now. But it was one of those things. It reminds me of back, I'm going to say back in the late 70s. I remember going to Iso Speedway, and I remember these guys battling, first, second, third were battling, first, second, third were battling. And it was, you know, 2 wide, 3 wide, 2 wide, 3 wide. And all of a sudden, 1 and 2 separated. One went to the left, one went to the right, and the guy in third decided he's going to go right through that hole, and in that hole was another car that was stopped, destroyed 2 race cars. So, you know, and back then they didn't have spotters in figure 8 racing. In fact, I don't recall having spotters back in the 60s and the 70s, at least in the weekly series anyway. But it was one of those things that just, I don't know how a crash like this could occur. So I think we have it. So let's bring it up and take a look at this, because you know, it's pretty horrific if you ask me. And I'm looking at it now myself. So this red car was slowing up there. We lost power. He had reported that he was losing power. And next thing you know, the cars were coming, and it was just somebody wasn't paying attention. It was just, I don't know. Well, you know, my racers say that the slow car should have pulled onto the grass. And what happens is, I guess they're trying to get it fired up or refired or get it to go, and they don't think about that when you're sitting in a race car. I know that. I know what that feeling is like.
Problem. Oh my gosh!
That was pretty serious.
That was a very hard impact.
Full course caution. Huge impact between the 99, the Daytona prototype, and the 62,
Mimo
the
Gidley
GTLM Ferrari. Mimo Gidley behind the wheel of the 99.
You know, the rescue people there, they went to a full course yellow and eventually went to red.
Great response from everybody here in terms of safety workers and flag marshals. Remember, that Daytona does this better than anyone else. The debris field
it just happened so quickly that, you know, nobody had a chance to stop or get out of the way. But I think there's another angle in the video that shows from where we're looking now, the actual crash, instead of from the side view, as a part of this video. And it was.
The 62 could
I just can't believe that, and how that could happen.
Ferocious.
It's just, here we go again, and he just slowed up and slowed up and slowed up, and then wham, just got whacked. Here they're coming, and Man, that's some impact.
That was a tremendous impact.
Again, they're traveling at high rates of speed, and the cars are built safe and whatnot. But like this one, the guy went to the left. He went to the inside, so to speak, because he was going to go around him, not realizing there was a car slowing up. Now, one of the things that I tell all race car drivers who ask me, about racing, what to do, what not to do, and what you want, and I learned this, believe it or not, at UPS as a UPS driver. One of the things you want to do is you want to keep your eyes moving. You want to look ahead. You want to look over the steering wheel. And you want to always leave yourself an out. And sometimes when you're cruising along, and I'm guilty of this myself, your race car is 84 inches wide, I guess, from outside wheel to outside wheel. And you try to put that 82-inch wide race car in a 70-inch hole, hoping that the hole is not there when you get to it. And you got to understand, these guys are probably traveling at a rate of a football field a second on the straightaway. And when you think about that, think about that. Your reaction time, you're not stopping on a dime, and by the time you realize something is happening, I mean, man, it's just incredible. Now, when you see a crash like that, and years ago, both those competitors would have been gone. They would have been gone. But today, with all the safety and the technology, and the cars are bent to absorb energy and send parts flying, and not just wad up on you, and with the angles and whatnot, it's just incredible. It's incredible. I saw that today, and I said, whoa. Now, the reason I wanted to show that is, cars go through tech, whether they're going as an entry-level division at their local track around the corner from the house, or whether they're going through tech at the highest level of racing. And officials, believe it or not, officials are trained to look for things, to go for things, to make sure that nobody is injured. And an official will say, hey, so-and-so, you gotta fix this or change this. Now, officials aren't doing stuff like this to break your chops. Officials are doing stuff like that to keep competitors, from getting injured any more than they may. And that's why I said I'm wearing an official's hat right now, because I did that for a long time. And one of the reasons I became an official, other than it was offered to me, is because what happened to me shouldn't have happened to me. Now, people joke around and say, I had a pizza box firewall, and there's a whole big story about that, but the day of the crash, we had a normal firewall, just like everybody else's. But however, the car that I was driving was built for a guy probably 6 inches shorter than me, and because that 6 inches was mostly in my upper body, when I had that wreck, the impact of the crash was such that not only were my feet pushing through the foot box, when the engine came back and ripped it open, it just made that little bit open and tore open like a sardine. One leg went out under the wheel, in between, I'm going to say, the upper and lower control arm, where the other leg was the way I had it on the gas pedal. It had nowhere to go, and it just snapped and everything went flying off me. And now, maybe, just maybe, if a tech guy at my local racetrack would have taken a look at, they really should take a look at these drivers sitting in these race cars sometimes and say, wait a minute, dude, there's no room for your legs in there. If something happens, you're going to break your legs. Or what they need to say is, your seat needs to go back, your seat, they need to take a look at these things. And I can remember telling the owners of the racetrack that, hey, I'm really thinking about being an official, and why do you want to be an official? I said, well, I don't think it should happen to me, it should happen to anybody else. And I don't know. And Silverback, we do have Skype. We'll figure out how to do that. Nobody's done that in my 2 years and 11 months on this show, but we'll try to make that happen. My producer's not, yeah, we could do this. So when we take a break, we'll give us a shout and we'll tell you what you have to do. But going back to again why I became an official, and I was a buster, man. I broke people's chops, and people would, look at me like you're crazy. And one of the things I implemented at my weekly racetrack, which ended up being used in other series across the country, one of the things I didn't like about the late models and the Chargers too, even at my local racetrack, and basically any stock production car, race car at the racetrack, I didn't like that the trailing arms bolted like right behind the seat. Now, let's say you back it into the fence as hard as I went into it forwards. That trailing arm breaks. That trailing arm had two places to go. One, it might go down, depending on the angle of the impact, or it's going to go through the back firewall, through the aluminum seat, and through the competitor. So a lot of guys kind of complained that I was making them do this, put this steel plate in. Until one day, one of the competitors came up to me who did back it into the fence, and he said, I want you to see something. So I went to his shop, and I looked, and there was a trailing arm, and you could see it. It went right into the steel plate that I already put in. And you could see how it rode the plate and kind of folded, the trailing arm itself. Had that plate not been there, that driver wouldn't have been calling me and asked me to come to his race shop. He would have asked me to come visit him at the rehab center because he would have probably had to learn how to walk again. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back because that's not what I'm doing. But what I'm doing is this. When an official says to any competitor, you need to change this, you need to change it. The official says to you, I don't like the way that looks. I want you to do such and such. You need to do that. And it brings me up to a memory I had, and I'm not going to say who the crew chief was or the team, but we went up to Mansfield, Ohio. But 3 events prior to Mansfield, Ohio for this event, this one competitor decided he didn't have to follow my rules. Now, he had a hole in his firewall, and many holes in the firewall, because it looks like he had used the firewall in different race cars, and where the stairwell went, where this went, where wiring harnesses went. He had a hole, and I'm going to say it was about this big around. Let me get the right camera. It was this big around. I'll show it here so you can see it. Now, he had a bunch of little ones that were this much around. And I said to the guy, dude, you got to cover them up. Nothing's going to fit through it. I said, let me explain what's going to happen if there's a fire in the engine compartment. Those openings are going to be like a blowtorch. And it's going to send fire directly at your driver. You need to fix them. So he fixed the little ones, and I said, you got to fix them by the next race. The next race, 3 races into it, it's still not fixed. We're up at Mansfield, Ohio. And I tell him, you had 3 weeks. We wrecked, and I didn't have time. I said, well, you know what? You're not practicing until they fix it. Look, what are you talking about? You're not practicing until you fix it. And if you don't fix this, you're not going on the racetrack. And if you don't fix it in time for practice, that means you can't qualify, because you can't make a qualifying attempt without practicing. And then if you can't qualify, you're not eligible for a provisional, and therefore you drove to Mansfield, Ohio to watch this race. Well, of course, he goes up to the series director, Chad Little, at the time, and he's trying to plead his case, and Chad agrees with me, and you got to fix it. I told him, when you fix it, you got to show me. Well, he wanted to know, where am I going to get this, where am I going to get that, where am I going to get a piece of steel here, and where am I going to get flame retardant material to cover it? I can't do this. I said, you can't race. Well, he told one of the officials that were nearby, he told him that it was all done. Joe said it was okay to go, and he goes on the racetrack, but I didn't see it. So I stopped him. I had him stopped at the gate. I wouldn't let him go out on the racetrack until he went and saw it, and sure enough, it wasn't fixed. He didn't like me for the rest of the season. We ended up getting it fixed and fixed correctly, but he didn't like me for the rest of the season. Until like the last race, he came up to me after talking to another official, and the guy told me, he goes, I don't know why you're upset with Joe. Joe's just doing his job. He's a pretty mellow, nice guy. Obviously the guy didn't know me in my younger days, but anyway. He came up to me and he apologized, because that Thursday or Friday night at some local racetrack, a similar situation occurred, and there was a fire in the engine compartment, and the fire blew through that hole like it was a blowtorch. And on a weekly level, series, people, a lot of those competitors, when it comes to their race uniforms or fire suits, as they're commonly called, they go with the cheapest thing. Well, the rule says I have to have a fire suit. I got a fire suit. You know, it's the cheapest one to have. Now, I always said you can't put a price on safety. Now, I talked about fire suits last week, and I know I paid some good money for my fire suit. And when my daughter raced, I got the best. Got the best. I didn't look at a budget and say, well, let's get the $150 special. You know, it comes in a box all nice and folded, you know, and you wash it once and the fire retardant stuff is out of it. No, that's not what you want. I mean, you know, it's like if you have a $20 head, you get a $20 helmet. But you know what? Go get a good helmet, because your head's going to take a pounding. You don't realize what your head goes through in a race. And you also don't want to have a heavy doggone helmet, because, you know, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, and the next day your neck hurts. You want to get what's right. And I drove for a guy, his attitude was, it's good enough for now. Well, no, it's not good enough for now, because now is the present, and if you mess up, there might not be a future. But he had this, it's good enough for now, let's make it happen. So you gotta do those things, and you just gotta be safe, and don't break the officials' chops when they're telling you gotta change something. You know, can you ask? Can you get an explanation? Absolutely. If you're going over the scales and through the tech line, and they tell you your wheelbase is fouled up, and you know you measured it right in the shop, sometimes it's the way they use the gauge, and I went through that at Thompson with the 38 car. They, you know, sitting there and it's, wheelbase, the car's too long. The car wasn't too long all year. Nothing was changed. All of a sudden, they're going to be too long. And I got out and I showed them what they had to do, and we rolled it a little bit and put it back, and it was fine. But when it comes to a safety thing, you know, and I know there's not a lot of racers, a lot of drivers sitting in the chat room tonight, but I don't know who's listening without being in the chat room. But you got to listen to these officials. Their goal, they don't drive to their job because it's a job to them. They don't drive to, let me see who I could get this week. They don't do that. What they do is they say, let's make a competitive field, let's make a good race, and let's make it a safe race. So, you know, that's what you want to do. You know, it's you want to have what's right. You want to do what's right. And again, the officials aren't breaking balls. And the first thing you don't want to get into an argument with an official. I mean, I know there's a couple of them have big heads and they think who they are, and the power goes to their head, and they think who they are because, and I'm going to say this, and because Joe believes this, they have a menial job Monday through Friday where they're the worker and their boss beats on them all week. So when they put on that official shirt, they're in charge now, and they got to flex their muscles, and they got to strut, and they got to walk around with their clipboard like they're taking notes and whatnot, and they don't know how to talk to people. You ask them a question, they jump all over you, and then, you know, they start yelling at you over things they don't even know what they're yelling about, and there's no need for that. You know, and that's what happens when you have people who never raced become race officials. And my thing, I've always said, if you want to be an official, you have to have racing experience. You have had to work on them, build them, drive them, something. You know, like one guy was an official. So what experience do you have? I asked. Well, what experience do you have that you're, you know, going to be a touring official? He goes, well, I watched a bunch of races. I looked at him. All right. No, really. What qualifications do you have to make you an official? No, I'm like a fan. You know, I used to watch Charlie Jasonbach, Richie Evans, and yeah, but that doesn't make you knowledgeable when it comes to. Well, no. I went online and it was an opening, and I was like, whoa. Or the one official at a weekly racing series track, I said, hey, why'd you become an official? He goes, well, you know, I started coming to the races, and the price to get in got to be too much, and I found out that if I become an official, not only do I get in for free, and they pay me, but my wife gets in for free too. So that's why you're an official. What do you know about racing? Oh, I don't know. Well, what do I need to know? And he ended up having a job as an official. He flipped the lights to green and yellow on the flag stand. That was it. Because somebody would say, oh, God, we got to spin in turn two. Put it out. And he'd go to the yellow light, boop, put it on. All right, one to go with the line, boop, put the light off. And as the green flag flies, he hit the green. That was his job. So he got like $30 a night. He got in for free, and his girlfriend or wife got in for free. That made him an official. And that's the type of guy that walks around with his arms folded, you know, staring you down because he thinks who he is. But that's just the exception. because there are good officials out there that work hard, that study. I know every year they sent us, and we were recertified. We had to take tests and all kinds of nonsense and go to the R&D center and learn stuff. We just didn't fill out a form to become an official. We had to know something. And the engine guy, and all the series, they had to go to Concord to the R&D center and learn how to tech an engine. And the tranny guy, and the rear end guy, and the undercarriage guy, and the body guy, we were all sent to some kind of trainer to do that. And then when a new tool came out to measure wheelbase, this is how you use it. Right? When we did the thread width. And whenever a tool came out, we had to be taught how to use it. And that's how it won. And even the leveling of the scales, there's no lasers. I had to make sure that everybody's on an equal playing field. But if I could tell you any one thing, and hopefully I take my own advice as I get in the heat of the moment racing, don't get into it when official, because this is what happens. Some of these guys and gals, they have egos. You hurt their feelings. Now they're going to go after you. They're going to, they're going to want to pay you back down the road or somewhere and make it happen to make you miserable because you made them miserable. So there again, if I could leave you with anything tonight, just if you're involved with a race team, don't get into it with an official. Talk nice, and when they start yelling at you, talk softer, because it's hard to yell at somebody who's not yelling back at you. When we come back, I think we'll have some footage of. Yeah, we're gonna do a scare. When we come back, we'll Skype in this horrific wreck that my crew chief had, because I'll tell you what, he had an angel on his shoulder that day. We're gonna show this one when we come back.
Girls, 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 all have something to say. Some say their emotions get in the way. Some like them big, some like them skinny. Oh, girls, who's come this way? We must unite, this is the place. You don't have to show your face. Girls, I'll be a lady of today. Say what you
Okay, we're back. I believe we have Silverback Skyping with us. We're gonna. Oh, there he is. Look at that. Not bad for a guy who was all mangled a couple of days ago. Yeah, if you could shut your computer down, we'll get a lot of feedback. Or at least shut the volume down, not shut it down, just the volume.
Here he comes. He's going to talk to you first, Presley.
Can't hear him.
So how does it feel to be on Skype with 7.2 billion people across the world? He's speechless.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Look at that. Not bad for a guy who was all mangled a couple of days ago.
shut your computer down. We're getting a lot of feedback. You shut the volume down. Not shut it down, just the volume.
She's doing it right now. Can't hear him.
So how does it feel to be on?
Oh, watch it, Joe.
How we doing out there?
Took you out voice, so I can't hear you.
This is
How you feeling?
Anyways, I got the picture here.
Yeah, let's take a look.
can't hear. He's talking.
Look at that. That's what's left of his truck. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's just incredible. Had to be cut out.
She just took you away.
Watch it, Joe.
Took you out voice, so I can't hear you. You hear me now?
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Sore. I wanted Donna to do this, but she didn't want to do it. Anyways, I got the picture here.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Can't hear. He's talking.
Man, oh man. That's incredible. How you feeling?
Nothing.
Unbelievable.
It's
just incredible.
Yeah, they really took care of me though.
Yeah. So what?
I don't know what she did with you. I can hear you, but
That's because we probably shut your volume down. You couldn't hear us.
Sure. I wanted Donna to do this, but she didn't want to do it. I got the picture here.
Can't hear him. I don't know. I hit Skype.
All right, DJ, we're going to run. Well, I want to thank you for sharing those pictures. And again, all of us here at InRavio, our prayers are out that you get a recovery and everything's fine. And we're looking forward to seeing you in the shop getting my race car ready.
I don't know what she did with you. I can hear you,
That was good. That was, I mean, not good, but it's, yeah. My control room was saying that his computer isn't really totally set up for this. And it was like a big delay, but we got to see pictures of the truck to the point. The front end of the truck was gone, and basically what happened in this wreck. There was a curve in the road, travel along. I would believe about 50, 60 miles an hour, and the car just didn't make the curve, didn't make the turn in the road, cross the solid yellow line, and hit him head on. The driver of the other car, unfortunately, a 32-year-old, passed away as a result of the injuries that he sustained. And I want to thank God that DJ survived it. He had an angel on his shoulder that day, and it's one of the things you think about. I know when I had that wreck in '96 at the racetrack at Riverhead, my guardian angel was there for me, and we kind of made sure that I lived through that. And I often wonder why, because I looked at, I watched the video. I just watched that video about a month or so ago, and I was like, man, why did I survive that? And I'm still trying to figure that one out. But I know why DJ survived, because other than he has a loving family, he needs to take care of me, because I can't have another wreck like the one I had. So, and I know he will. I know he will. No, racers, no, it wasn't. It was, and I'm only speculating, but when you're driving down the road and you see the top of a guy's head behind the wheel, and I'm thinking they're doing this. No. And then the road curves and they don't. I'm not saying that that's what happened here, but that's what appears to be happening. That their head was on. Or they fell asleep. I don't know. Maybe they weren't texting and driving. Maybe they just fell asleep. They had a long, busy day. I don't know. But the bottom line is that they cross a solid yellow line and hit him head on. So, again, prayers to my buddy there, because you never want to see something like that. It's just, those are the crashes that you drive past on the highway and you're like, wow. And even the vehicles built for the street today, they're built with crush zones and stuff and impact zones, and so that your body doesn't absorb all of the impact. But it's, yeah, so like somebody has to watch over me, because I'll tell you what, I've had so many people over the last couple of weeks tell me how crazy I am to do this. When I get into that car for the first time competitively, I'll be 56 years old, and people are saying, why didn't I do this 10 years ago, 20 years ago even? And there was a couple of reasons why I didn't. I didn't have the resources. I didn't have a team to support me. I didn't have people who care about me kind of pushing. I know that this, and I was just telling somebody this story today. They said, how did this come to be? I was talking to a potential sponsor, and it was like, he said, how did this happen? And this person has known me for a long time, and I said, well, it started as a joke, actually. It started out a joke in Monadnock 2 or 3 years ago, and where Wade Cole had brought 2 cars to the racetrack and only 1 driver, himself. And I was doing tech, and part of filling out the tech form was, who's driving this car? And he said, well, nobody, I guess you are. And I unbundled my official shirt. I said, well, I guess I am. I always have my stuff in the trunk. And that's how it started. And we laughed and we laughed. And then I got in it. We took some pictures. And, and I said, maybe I could throw on some of these stuff and I could go at least take a practice on it. They're not going to miss me. Then if you laugh, if I did, and somebody saw me or God forbid something happened, it wouldn't be good. So we didn't do that. So I don't know. It's one of those things that just happened as a joke. And then Wade and I spoke, and we spoke some more, and then we spoke some more, and then last, I'm gonna say, in 2012, it was the cars were parked on the hill up at Thompson, and I was kind of babysitting the cars and impound, and Wade came down, and we sat down, and we had a long talk about it, and I realized Wade was serious. He wanted me to drive his race car. And we talked some more, and I said, no, I'll give you a call after the holidays. And this became a standard joke, because I guess the next time I saw him to talk about it was at the Icebreaker the following season. And he said, which holiday are you talking about, Easter? And it became a joke, and we laughed and we laughed and laughed. And then I did my thing where, it was time to hang up the official's uniform and go do something, go get involved with a team. So what better team to get involved with was the team that made me feel like I knew them my whole life. And we went to Bristol, we had a good run. Went to Riverhead, he had an awesome run. And we had 2 cars in the lead lap and the top 15 at the last race of the year, and that was incredible. And I'm not saying that I had anything to do with that, but it just made everybody feel good. So, but anyway, Silverback saying, my car will be ready, but he might not be for practice. Yeah, we're doing a test session in March, so it's going to be interesting. I'm going to see if I can turn laps Thompson better than my daughter did. I'm pretty sure I can. But anyway, I'm talking to this guy today. Talking about sponsorship and how do you get into it. And when I told him that, I said to him, listen, to me, this is like a golf game. I'm not looking to move into the K&N ranks. I'm not looking to be in a truck, Camping World Truck Series guy. I'm not looking to be a nationwide driver. I have no aspirations to drive Cup. And I'm not looking to win a championship. I'm looking to go racing. And I said to him, it's like my golf game. Whether I shoot a 95 or a 145, as long as I'm out there with my friends, I had a good time, that's all good. And he says, well, I play golf. And to me, he goes, if I could do a round of golf with 1 golf ball, that's a win. whether I shot the same thing, whether I shot a 90 or a 190. And that's what it's all about. It's having a good time because life is too short. It's too short. And you want to do those things. You want to do the things that make you happy. I don't want to look back and say shoulda, woulda, coulda. I have a lot of those that, you know, when you take inventory of your life, you're like, oh, maybe I should have did this, or I could have did that. Or maybe I would have did this if. And I don't want to do that. I want to drive a modified. I want to race a modified. I want to go out and do 150 laps at 150 miles an hour. Or as Harry Man would say, why watch a tour race when the average speed is 30 miles an hour? Well, no. I think that's the evaluation of that is all wrong. But because the way they determine average speed is you just take the total miles, write it in, and do the math on how many minutes or hours the race took, and if you're sitting there under red, that the clock is still ticking. So it kind of lowers the average speed. But anyway, real quick, the Fab Four is coming to the Paramount Theater in Huntington, Long Island, New York, Saturday, February 8th at 8 p.m. And Aravio's got your tickets. Click on the contest tab or the homepage to enter to win, or log on to ParamountNewYork.com for a complete listing of all the shows. Again, I had the opportunity to attend the Paramount, an event there just a couple weeks back, and it was awesome. I thought I was in Midtown Manhattan. It was just awesome. And then the traffic was pretty awesome, too. Had to park a couple of blocks away, but I know part of that was because I got there later than maybe I would have liked to, but that's okay. But it was an awesome place, good seats. It was coming. I don't think there's a bad seat in the house, and the sound was awesome, and it was just nice. So if you haven't had the opportunity to go to the Paramount, you might want to go on to ParamountNY.com, and I'm sure there's a show there that you would like to attend, or go to our contest and click on the contest, and maybe you'll win tickets. But anyway. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, I want to talk about the new qualifying format in the NASCAR Top National Series. We'll be back.
Will you
track qualifying. Now, I've watched qualifying at racetracks as small as 1/5 of a mile and as big as 2.5 miles. And I'll tell you what, I'd rather watch paint dry, especially on the super speedways. It is just as boring can be. Especially, at Daytona, it's like 55 seconds a lap, 58 seconds a lap. That's a long time. And forget what a road course takes. So NASCAR knew they had to do something. They had to do something with qualifying to make qualifying a little more interesting. So they came up with this thing, and as WJ said, myracers.com, now the big one's going to happen in practice. And I agree, because this is what they've done. And I know they're trying to make excitement for it, so on qualifying day, more people come and watch qualifying, and the promoters can sell more beer, more soda, more hot dogs, more pretzels, whatever they sell. But here's what they've done. Now, NASCAR has announced the Coors Light qualifying changes for all 3 national series, which does not include, though, the Daytona 500. Officials have announced a group qualifying format to replace single entry attempts previously used over the years. It will now consist of 3 rounds at tracks that measure 1.2 miles or longer, and 2 rounds at those tracks measuring less than 1.2 miles. The 3-round format works like this. Round 1 of practice. All entries will have 25 minutes to post a qualifying time, after which the 24 fastest will advance to the second round. Those failing to advance will be sorted based on first round times in descending order from fastest to slowest. Round 2, the 24 fastest from the first round will have 10 minutes to post a second round qualifying time, with the 12 fastest advancing to the third round. Those not advancing will earn spots 13th through 24th based on time in a descending order. Round 3, the final round will be 5 minutes in length. The fastest time from the session will determine spots 1 through 12. There will be a 5-minute break between rounds. No major changes or adjustments can be made to the cars. The provisional system will remain in place. Now, what you now have is 3 races before the race, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to be racing to get in. They're going to team up with their buddy. They're going to draft. And nothing. I didn't see anything in the rule in this new thing on how they're going to stop the 3-car teams from ganging up on the little guy, the single-car teams, and teaming up and getting in the draft and not allowing the single-car teams to get involved with that. So, the Hendrick cars are going to be up front all the time. The Gibbs cars are going to be up all the time. Stewart Haas is going to be up front all the time. This is what's going to happen. The single-team guy, the guy that just shows up with a race car and his hauler and a crew, I don't think they stand a chance. I hope NASCAR does something to discourage that. Let's all just run together here, folks. And I didn't see anything that said they're going to, but I hope they do. But that first round is going to be crazy, especially in the beginning. See, when they go to the smaller tracks, it's going to be only 2 rounds. So again, when they do this, it's going to be a race within a race. So it's going to be a big field in round 1, a little bit small field round 2, and a little small field round 3. Now, Daytona, they can't do this, and the reason for that is they would have no need for the dual 150s, as I guess they call them. I don't know what they're calling them, this way. And so like, absolutely, I agree. It sounds like heat races, and you don't necessarily have to win practice. You just have to have the fastest lap in that time frame. And WJ, you're right. And you know, here, let's say I'm a single car team. I'm going to get with another single car team. Hey guys, if we don't work together, we're out of the show. We got to work together here. We have to be a team in practice. And I've always told guys, when I was the head official at a local racetrack, I used to tell the guys, they'd be out racing in practice, wrecking each other. I used to say, guys, practice don't pay nothing. What are you racing for? Well, now it does. What I said all those years, it's just thrown out the window. You gotta race in practice to get in the race. Again, I understand what NASCAR is doing. NASCAR is trying to make it more interesting. NASCAR is trying to speed it up. NASCAR, when time trials is televised, it goes on and on and on forever. Now, Formula One qualifies similar to this. They qualify based on practice times, and some road course, series they practice. Their practice times determine whether they're in a show or not. So, is this the right way to go? I'll tell you what. The other way to go. I used to watch qualifying on a Friday afternoon. I'd be home. I'd be watching the baby. I'd be watching the granddaughter. I'd be sitting there. We'd watch it qualifying because it mesmerized the baby. She was maybe less than a year old, and the sounds and the colors. She would just sit there with a bottle, and eventually she would just fall asleep because it was, let's admit it, boring. But she liked the colors and the sound. So, yeah, I guess that was okay to watch cars go around and one at a time, and she see different colors. But as an adult, with some semblance of intelligence, I'm like, wow. So what I would do is I'd put picture in a picture, and I put qualifying up in a little box there, and I'd maybe watch a show that I was watching. I'd look up every once in a while to catch the time, and if one of my guys that I'm, favorites to, I was going out there, and I, click it and do the swap, so I had the full screen of the race and little screen of picture-in-picture of what I was watching. And, and then it's, it's good to see, who the finishes where, who's doing what, and who's getting bumped and who's not, and who still has a shot at what it, and it was just not my thing. And, quick story, I was rooming with a guy who was working an event. I forget what city we were in, what track. After a while, all the hotels looked the same. But I was rooming with this cup official. And he got in the room before me, because officials, you double up. And he's laying on the bed. He's got his laptop going, and Cup qualifying's on TV, on the old Speed channel. And it just started. And I said, hey, how you doing? He goes, I'm good. He goes, hey, qualifying just started, man. I said, really? Yeah, well, let's watch. He goes, hey, what I like to do is I like to bet on the times, who could come the closest to the time. So let's do like a quarter a car, see who was the closest. I'm like, I'm not really into it. I really didn't like the guy, but we got to kill some time here before we go to dinner. So I'm up for it. So I forget what track. It was a small track, and I forget what the track was. But he'd say, hey, what do you think? What do you think this guy's going to do? I don't know, 13-1. He goes, I think 12-7. Sure enough, car comes across the line, 12-7. Oh, wow, you got pretty lucky. Then we go to the next car. I'm like, 12-9. Because I'm thinking 13-3. Sure enough, the guy comes in 13-3. Now I'm down 50 cents here. I don't like losing. So after about the 10th car, I'm like, this guy has hit it on the head every time. So I look over on his laptop. He's got qualifying on his NASCAR laptop. And he starts laughing. Because qualifying on TV, you don't miss a car. Every car you see qualifying. Because this is what they do. When they go to commercial, they run in the cars, but you're not getting it live. He's getting it live on his laptop. You're getting it on delay about 5 cars behind. So he knew everybody's time. So I kind of looked at him, and I took my 50 cents back or $1, and I took it back. I was like, that wasn't funny, dude. That wasn't funny. He thought it was pretty funny, and at dinner he couldn't wait to tell everybody I did that. So maybe that's why I really have a bad taste in my mouth for the old qualifying. But this new format I kind of like because, as Silverback I said earlier before, it looks like heat races, and it does, and that's going to be exciting. I think there's going to be a lot of bumping and grinding. I just want to know what's going to happen on some of these racetracks where these guys are trading paint to gain a 10th that they can't fix because it's an impound. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Interesting. So I said, hey, I see my old tire person and crew member on the chat room, Tracy. Welcome. Haven't seen you here in a long time. Hope everything's well. I'll tell you what. When my daughter was running one blunderbuss and tore it up a couple of times, that car got put back together more times than not in Tracy's garage because of her husband, Chris. And I was just looking at pictures of that the other day, that when the car was, literally the car was in the shape of a U, and her husband, Chris, put it back together over that winter. I was looking at those pictures, I was like, I can't believe, most people would have gave up, but Chris got it back together. And then I see Tracy's son, Brian, the kid's growing up, he's so big now, you know, and he's skiing, he's racing, and it's good to know, good to see. But yeah, Tracy's up at Bethel Speedway. I believe she's a PR person up there, taking care of things and making it look so easy. But for those of us who have been behind the scenes of a racetrack and what we do, there's a lot more than running an event than just putting the key in a lock, opening it up, and building it, and they will come. It's a lot of hard work. You know. And I know Tracy was a hard worker, and she was, like I said, she did my tires. She did whatever we needed her to do. And even have the car at her place, and her husband working on it at night. So I miss you, Tracy. We had some fun. We had some good times, you know. But we're going tour racing. We're going. I don't know if you'd heard, but you know, I know you don't have tour mods up at Bethel. But I'll tell you what, if there was a race up there, I would have to convince my crew to go, because anytime we've gone up there, we were treated good. So anyway. So what are you doing up there, Tracy? And because I know you, every time I see a banquet or a picture or an ad or something, you seem to be in it. So doing a lot of stuff up there. So a lot of stuff. But it's all good. But anyway, so that's what's happening with qualifying. Qualifying has changed. Let's see how that goes. But Daytona's going to be, I guess, the same. You're going to do some times and pick up lineups in the dual 150s, and they go by their practice time or their position in the duals, and get into the event that way. And hopefully they have enough cars. Usually everybody shows up at Daytona, but I can remember 60 cars would show for that event, 60, 70 cars, and getting into the race sometimes is the hardest thing. And a lot of teams fell back on their times because they got wrecked in the duels. So Tracy Tricker is the business operations manager, managing the entire facility. So I know I read that somewhere, but I just couldn't remember what your title was. But I know, not only are you doing the business operations, you are keeping Bethel Speedway on the map. Let me tell you. And Tracy's one of those persons, gives 110% to everything she does, and it's all good, all good. Anyway, what else we got to talk? We got some things. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Mario Andretti, Ray Evernham, and Steve Wade lead this year's class of inductees for the National Motorsports NASCAR Hall of Fame. Andretti is the only driver to win the Daytona 500, the Indy 500, and a Formula One championship. Ray Evernham, as you know, is a championship-winning crew chief, and he also joins award-winning journalist Steve Wade. So that's a fine triumvirate of men entering there. Andretti, who competed in NASCAR only for a few years, from 1966 to 1969, and only made 14 starts in those 4 seasons. He drove for the legendary Holman Moody team, winning the 1967 Daytona 500. He also had 4 Indy championships. That was in 65, 66, 69, and 84. And he won the Indy 500 in 1969. He also has 12 Formula One wins with a title in 1978. Evernham, Ray Evernham, who won 3 NASCAR titles between 1993 and 1999 with Jeff Gordon at Hendrick Motorsports. And, of course, everybody knows Steve Wade. He has covered NASCAR for more than 4 decades. So 3 worthy individuals going into the Hall of Fame for that. Now, I'll tell you what, and when you look at a Hall of Fame, there's some people who aren't in the know, who aren't in the, I don't know, don't know the prestigious of this. Whether you're in your local high school Hall of Fame or whether you're in a National Sports Hall of Fame, it's an honor. Because going into the Hall of Fame, any Hall of Fame, is a recognition from your peers. Now, whether you're a multi-win driver or multi-championship driver, whether you're an owner that won championships, whether you're a crew guy who was a crew chief for championship teams, even if you're a sponsor, and a lot of guys and gals couldn't have raced without you, you know, entering and being selected and inducted into a Hall of Fame is quite an honor. I know I've said this before. I happen to be a member of the Ernie Maynard Memorial Safer Hall of Fame, Safer, the Suffolk Association of Figure Eight Racing. I was inducted, I believe, in 2002. Believe it or not, I think it was 2002. And it was an honor. It was a surprise. I didn't expect it. I really didn't. I did not expect it. In fact, I wasn't even going to go to the banquet that year because I had some bad feelings about things, and it had nothing to do with SAFE. It just had to do with the racetrack in general. And those who look at the timeline can understand what was going on. But when I received that plaque, and I went in with downtown George Brown, we got elected the same year. I was like, I wasn't even in his league as a driver. I mean, let's face it. Here's a man who won races. I think he's the 4th winningest driver in figure eight racing on Long Island. And here I was. I didn't even win a heat race in my lifetime, but I was in the Hall of Fame and they felt for whatever accomplishments I had done up until that time. And I still hang that plaque proudly in my hallway. And I have a hallway full of plaques and pictures and trophies of racing. And it's an honor, you know, and these men should be proud that they're in this Hall of Fame. And, you know, doesn't give you any money, doesn't give you any prestige. You still, when you get on the bus, it still costs you $1. You know, you still have to get online at the drive-through window at the fast food places. But it's an honor, and it's something that, you know, you carry with you, entering a Hall of Fame. And I look at the Safer Hall of Fame, and while we're talking about the Hall of Fame, I look at the Safer Hall, and I look at that list of people that are on there. And some of those people I remember watching run figure eight stock cars when I was just a little kid going with my grandfather to the races. And then I look at some of the guys, I'm like, I remember that guy. I remember that official. I remember that guy used to sponsor races. He was a racer himself, this guy. And I'm looking down, and you look down the list of names, and you're looking, wow, who I'm in here with. And just recently, you know, the state is starting to recognize some of the old-time figure eight guys that ran at Riverhead, because it seemed like it was a close-knit little group with ISA Speedway people. And I know I kind of fought that for years and years and years, and able to convince the powers to be to put Don Howe in, who was a Riverhead Raceway figure eight guy before moving on to modifieds. Because back then, that was your option. You drove figure eights or modifieds. You know, and if you wanted to race, you ran figure eights, and if you had a couple of bucks or somebody with a couple of bucks, you went modified racing. And then, yeah, there was the bomber cars back then. They were really like, they looked like the enduro cars of today, the bomber cars. But they called them bomber cars because they were bombs. I don't know. But recently, like with the induction of Dan Giovanelli, and you know, a figure eight champion, and you know, Danny Turbish, getting him in as well. You know, there's still a couple of guys from that era at Riverhead that need to be in the Hall of Fame. And I've said this at every meeting that we've had to talk about Hall of Fame inductees. I said, I don't think we should put another person until every champion that has a figure eight championship trophy or plaque on his mantle and his trophy case is in that Hall of Fame. And I think we're leaning towards that. And there's a couple that you know, I'm not going to get into it now, but there's a couple of guys that I feel that need to be in that Hall of Fame for next year. And I'm not saying that anybody in there isn't deserving now, but we really need to take a look at the pioneers, the guys that basically they were in junkyard cars that they built a roll cage and put it in, and and not the sophisticated cars that these figure eight cars, some of them are today. Those are the guys, the pioneers. They need to be in. Those drivers, those owners from the old days that we've long forgotten. You know, and as Mike Muse said at one of the meetings we were talking about, Mike Muse says, I don't know of any of those guys. I wasn't going to the races then. I didn't know figure eight people. I went to Enduros. I don't know who should be eligible, who should be in, and who should not be in. And I'll tell you what, I think there should be an old timers committee that meets separately, and that we get some of these guys from the mid 60s, late 60s in, and those guys who knew those people or knew of those people, guys like myself and Joe Saraceno and Tom Kraft. We should sit down because we grew up watching these guys race. Well, Joe Saraceno raced with some of these guys, and because he's a lot older than Tommy and I. But some of those guys need to be in. We need to take a look at that. And I know for the 2014 inductees of the Safe Hall of Fame, there's some people that are on my list that need to get in. That need to get in. I'm going to start pushing that now and start planting those seeds and talking to those people. And when you do pick the Hall of Fame guy, one of the names I threw out there, I'm not going to say who they are, but when they get in, because they will get in, people would say, well, that guy wouldn't come. Well, you know what? So what? He still honored the person. We had people come a couple of years ago that were honored into the Safe Hall of Fame. They didn't show up. But we put them in anyway. They still got their plaques into them. So a Hall of Fame, it's an honor. Whether it's the National Motorsports Hall of Fame, whether it's a Safer Hall of Fame, whether it's your high school Hall of Fame. One of the touring officials was just elected at the Hall of Fame in her high school. And a B.J. Sparrow for her activities in sports going through high school was just put into the Hall of Fame in her high school. And with my high school, where I'm the Alumni Association, I still go to my high school football games. I graduated 38 years ago, and I still go to my high school football games if I'm not at a race, and still get involved. And there's a Hall of Fame in our high school. It's a big hallway, lobby area by the gyms, in between the two gyms, because our school had two gyms. I look at some of the people on there, and Babylon High School's been around for a long time, and you look at some of the names from the 20s, and then you see that their family has roots in the community, and they still live there. And then you look at the kids from today that are in that Hall of Fame, and some of them went on to be stars and Olympic medal winners and stuff. And a Hall of Fame is a Hall of Fame, and it's all good. It's one of those. It's an honor. It really is an honor. And I'll tell you what, I'm proud to say I'm a member of the Safe Association Figure Eight Racing Hall of Fame. And I don't know anybody that isn't. That's in it. So I don't know. And my races, absolutely. I want to get there's 3 guys that I want to get in the next 2 years. And just for that reason, it's get them in while they're still alive so they could be recognized for what they've done. And I remember when Don Howe, soft-spoken man that he is, and a tough competitor on a racetrack, when he was handed his Hall of Fame plaque. And I don't even remember the reason they used to get him to come to this, as it was called, this stupid figure eight dinner, which turned out to be one of the best banquets he ever attended. I'm not saying he said that, but other people did. But I don't know what reason they gave him to get him to go, but he was shocked when he received his plaque. And I know that feeling, because I was kind of shocked as well. So, I don't know. It kind of is what it is. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue on talking some racing stuff. We'll be back.
InRavio.com.
welcome back. I wasn't too bad. Taking all these, commercial breaks now, because, that's what we do. Anyway. But, we come a long way. We got to do these, we got to pay the bills. We got to promote our shows, and what better way to do it than doing a commercial. So that's why I know some of you don't like when we do that, but that's what we do now. All right? So anyway, yeah, Hall of Fames. It's just incredible. And I'll tell you what, for those of you who don't know downtown George Brown, he come across as one of the scariest looking guys, and he gets that voice and he gets all fired up, and you're like, whoa, you want to run in the other direction. But when he was handed his plaque, as much as he tried to make a joke out of it, there was tears dripping from his eyes. Because I presented him his plaque, and he had tears in his eyes, and I never expected that from a guy like, George Brown. Me, I'm an emotional guy, What are you going to do? But, you see guys like that, and they get teary-eyed over being inducted into a Hall of Fame. And I'll tell you what, there's no greater honor than being honored by your peers for your accomplishments. Again, whether you're, there's journalists in there, the late Ricky Miller in there, there's officials, Bobby Copeland, one of my dearest friends as an official. The guy told me more about racing in the short time that I knew him than other guys taught me in my lifetime. The late Walt Detzel, he's in there as well, Bob O'Rourke. Even Bobby Finan is in that Hall of Fame. And here's a guy who's been around racing close to 40 years, most of his life, Bob Finan. And nobody, and a lot of people, kind of badmouth the guy, but nobody does more work for competitors on this island and in the Northeast for guys who are traveling than Bob Finan, because, he takes a personal pride in these things and the teams, and he likes hearing, what the plans are, what you're doing, and what, where you're going, and how you're getting there, and then he promotes you and he writes stories. I know when my kid was racing, he was very helpful to us with some stuff. And I was doing some stuff with a late model driver more than a few years back. Holy cow, it was 20 years ago. And doing some sponsorship work with Tony Urbino when he ran the late model. And Bob coming to meetings with PepsiCo. We're working on this big deal. And Bob coming to the meetings and putting on his speech. And I'll tell you what, big influence on that deal. Now, we didn't get what we were looking to get, and there's other reasons for that, but he was there for that team, like he is for every single team that races here on Long Island, and even when they go off the island. And I'll tell you what, I would love to have him on the show as a guest, and I know for whatever reasons, the powers that be won't allow that, but he still has to make a living at that racetrack, and you got to listen to the people who, I guess, sign your checks, if not Monday to Friday, but at least on the weekends. But you look at all these guys that are in these Hall of Fames, whether it's, again, your local Hall of Fame or whatever. When you receive that plaque, you get it, and it's like, whoa. And then you hang it up, and then for those who do resumes to go get a job, you put that in your accomplishments. I'm in the Hall of Fame. And that raises questions to the person that is interviewing you, good questions. And they look at you, and see, I know I hired and interviewed a lot of people over my years, at UPS, and Loop Foods, now where I am now, and you interview these people and you're talking to them, and resumes are all, I call them fluff and utter. It's all fluff. It's nobody's, it's just a matter of how you write it, and people are getting professional resumes and all that kind of stuff. But there's things that I look for, and what I look for is loyalty and dedication. I don't want to see a guy who's had 5 jobs in 10 years. I don't want to see that. He's not dedicated. Unless 4 of those places went out of business. I look at longevity. I look at, hey, how long? So, I see you're at this company 15 years, and what caused you to leave? Why are you moving on? What? Oh, they moved. They went out of it. Whatever. But I look for that. I look for loyalty. But then the second thing I look for when I'm hiring a person is I look to see what accomplishments do they have. Yeah, so they might have a bachelor's degree, or they might have a master's degree, or an associate's degree. They might have and you know, and please don't take this the wrong way, but to me that shows that they could take a test. Is it a lot of hard work? Absolutely. Please don't get me wrong. I went to college, I never finished, and I went to law school and didn't finish that either. But I attended. I know it's a lot of hard work, and what accomplishments did you do where it was outside of your comfort zone? You know, hey, this person's in Who's Who. Hey, whoa, this person is in this Hall of Fame. Hey, this person is involved with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. This person's giving back to their community, you know. That's what I look for. I look to see with what this person does. I don't really care that he held this job or she held that job in this position or at that job. You know, if I were to list every job I had at UPS in the 25 years I was there, that would be a resume in itself. Has it helped me over the years when I've gone to do other things? Hey, I'm management at UPS. You know, that's like worse than being in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is like going to the Kiddie Corral, and it was at UPS. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that place. But you know, that's what I look at. And I was just looking at Mod Maniac. Welcome. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. He says, just Bob Feiner just announced that the Charlie Dzonbach Memorial Race is back on the schedule at Riverhead. Fan pressure pays off. And I'll tell you what, I'm putting together my schedule, and in my 8 or 9 race tour schedule, and there's a couple of races I want to do at my local racetrack if I could convince the car owner to let me do it, and that's one of them. I want to race in that. I want to attempt to qualify for that race. I don't know if Silverback is still here, but that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is get the car down here and kind of do that. Because and I'm not big on memorial races. I'm not. I mean, it's nice to remember our fallen heroes, let's say, and it's all good. And if our local racetrack wants to have a Charlie Dzonbach Memorial or a Baldwin or an Evans or whatever guy they want to honor, that's great. You know, more power to them. I'm just not big on it, like the Ernie Maynard Memorial, that Safer 25-lap race or the figure 8 race that they had in honor of Ernie Maynard, that Roger Maynard seemed to win almost all the time. But I believe let's somebody said earlier, let's honor these people while they're alive. You know, it's nice to remember. I mean, you know, I remember talking to Barbara and Jim Cromedy, the owners and promoters at Riverhead Raceway, about 10, 12 years ago. We're talking about memorial races, and they said, you know, Joe, because I was trying to get a memorial race for somebody, and they said, you know, Joe, if we really sat down and did it, we could have a memorial race every week, probably one in every division. And I was like, yeah, you know, I don't know, you're right. You know, I don't know, but you know, honor the person while they're alive. That's what I say. I can remember when I was a kid going to Ice Speedway, they had that big Lincoln Town Car convertible, and they used to have the driver of the week. And he was honored in the program. He was on the front cover. And that guy, you know, they came and they did a little speech, and they gave him whatever, and a little plaque and some flowers or wreaths, whatever. And then he would drive again. He would sit on the back seat. He would sit on top of the back seat in that Lincoln Continental convertible that's at the world's famous Ice and Speedway or something like that across the side. And he'd ride around waving to all the fans, you know, waving back and forth. And, you know, to me, that's what it's all about. Don't have a memorial race for me. Honor me while I'm living. You know, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm you know, don't get me wrong. I'm not against the Dzonbach or Evans or Baldwin memorial race. It's not my thing personally. I want to honor these guys when they're alive. So, you know, I don't know. I'm big on the present. You know, let's deal with it now, because tomorrow's not guaranteed, folks. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Like Michael Walsh's book, In the Blink of an Eye, his whole life changed in the blink of an eye. And if anybody who's read that book will understand, he's just not talking about the Daytona 500 win. There's other things in his life. You know, other things in his life. So it's one of those things that you just I just don't understand, and these memorial races, I just don't understand them. But I support them. If I'm not away racing, I attend them. And now I believe it, I like to race it. If I can just convince my car owner and crew to let me do that. I want to be a part of that. And I want to be able to say I did it. I want to be able to look back and say, I should have did it. Is it going to be inconvenient to bring the car down to Long Island? Yeah, it might be. Is it going to be a money loser? Yeah, most definitely. But you know what? I'll be able to say I did it. That's one of those races I wouldn't be doing for the money. I'd be doing it just so I could say I did it and honor those men who lost their lives doing what we take for granted today. And that's, that's basically it in a nutshell when it comes to that, because you got to enjoy each day. You got to enjoy it. And too many people. I watch some guys and gals when they go to their local racetrack, and sometimes they look like they're miserable. Walking in the pits, their hands in their fire suit pocket, their sleeves tied around their waist, and have this look on their face, like they don't want to be, that they'd rather go have root canal. And I say to myself, if it's not fun, why do it? I had a driver in my office a few years back, and he was sitting there, we're talking, and he says to me, this ain't fun anymore. Well, you know what, if it's not fun, then maybe you need to go do something that is fun. And he looked at me and I said, look, I'm not trying to chase you away. But you come here, you're miserable. And because you're miserable, you fight with the officials. And because you fight with the officials break your chops. And because they break your chops, your crew fights with the officials. And because your crew fights with the officials, you don't stand a chance on a racetrack. And every time your car comes into the pits after a practice or a heat race or even a feature, they're throwing stuff. They expected when you finished 11th, you should have finished 10th. If you finished 6th, you should have been 5th. If you were battling for the win, you should have won. If you wrecked, it was the other guy's fault. And it's screaming and yelling and ranting and raving and going down to have fights. And I was one of those guys. I was one of those guys. I got asked to leave more times than not back in the day. And sometimes if you're having a bad week, you go to the racetrack and it just got worse, and then you just took it out of the guy next to you. You go into the corner and you overcorrected and you put it in a fence, and of course somebody took you out. You're not going to put it in a fence by yourself. I wanted to hear just once a driver come to me and say, yeah, I wrecked myself in that one. I caused that wreck. Not one driver did I ever hear coming to me and say that. He took me out. He wrecked me on purpose. But the guys that wrecked with you, he's wrecked too. You think he wanted to wreck his old race car? I never understood that. There should be like a little anger management class that race car drivers have to go through, and they should have to watch the videos of their wrecks so you could see that maybe it was their fault. And you go from there. Because when it stops being fun, you got to do something else. Now, that's why I stopped being official, because it stopped being fun. I want to go racing. To me, that's going to be fun. Maybe after 3-4 weeks of coming off on the hook, God forbid, I might say, this isn't fun anymore. But our fun is the group that we're with. And I'll tell you what, the handful of races I worked with these guys, we never laughed so hard, and the stunts that we pulled on each other and the things. And here we are, we have a crew of type 2 diabetics eating Dunkin' Donuts sitting on the back of the trailer. I mean, that stuff is fun. It's all fun, When you look back, you laugh, and the things that you do. And that's why we do this thing we call racing, because it's supposed to be fun. And getting a crew together, getting a couple of guys up from the island to come travel with me to go racing. And we're going to have some fun on the way there. We're going to have some even more fun on the way back, hopefully, and good, clean fun, joking around, telling stories, sharing things with each other. Because that's what it's all about. The things that you look back on later in life, and the things that, my kids can look back and say that, because, me, I have to chronological. I have to, make a story out of it, working on a book, A View from Pit Road. I started it a couple of years ago, and basically it's about a race car driver turned official, turned race car driver. And he writes about why he became an official. And then the character goes on to why he stopped being an official to go back to being a race car driver. But this time he knew more. He knew a lot about the ins and outs, the politics, the games, the stuff that went on. A View from Pit Road. It should be interesting. It should be out by the summer. It's an interesting read. It's written on the same plane as A View from the Ramp. And if you happen to see yourself in this book, or somebody like you, or somebody like a friend of yours, it's purely coincidental. It's not on purpose, because it is a fictional story. Let's have some fun with it. But that's what it's all about. It's having fun, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm going to do. That's why I come here on Monday nights and chat with you folks, and because it's fun. And if this ever stopped being fun, I'd have to go to the powers to be and say, this isn't fun anymore. But I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening anytime soon. We're looking forward. I got the anniversary show coming up the end of the first week of March. That'll be our 3rd anniversary. So it'll be 150 shows, I believe we had, because I tried to figure out how many shows we had. I think it's 150 because we missed a couple. And it'll be 150th show, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to actually try to figure that out between now and then. And also I have some stuff planned for that show that I'm not going to say. It's going to be a surprise to everybody. But we're going to do it similar to what we did in the 2nd anniversary show. It'll be a little round robin shot. People call in, and we're going to have a good time with it. Have a real good time with it. But anyway, what are you guys talking about? You guys are having some fun here. Oh, you're talking about school and kids and all that kind of stuff. What's that got to do with racing? I don't know. Now, what books are we talking about? Talking about the ones that are coming out. View from the Inside. I believe we're doing our cover design this week. I got a call from the publisher. The cover design. Once the cover design is, then we can pretty much, get it together and go to print. We had hoped to get that book out for the holidays. It just didn't happen. With my new professional proofreader and editor, that's quite costly, I might add. But it's you pay, you get the best. And then the other two, that's A View from the Inside. It'll be out. We're gonna say February, because I don't think January will be cutting it. Then March, end of March, early April, we'll have A View from the Front Office. And late April, early May, A View from the Back Seat. And then we're looking at in June, July, A View from Pit Road. And then by the end of the summer, A View from the Window. And then I don't know what we're going to write about, because I'm out of topics. But then again, I was out of topics after the second one, and then it all came out to be. So I might do, there might be a show, A View from Studio A. I don't know if we want to do that, because I see a lot of stuff from Studio A, not as much as I saw in Studio B. But we got a whole new regime now, and I got my producer, Matt, who is very creative. He was able to come up with those convertible race cars last week and some roll cage cars, and he did this magic with the Rolex series with that footage. So I want to thank Matt. I'm having a fun time with Matt. Matt's doing all right. See that? There's a race car driving past me. Look at that. It's going to drive right past me. And that's something that my publisher from PK Books, Jeff Neubauer, he had said, you need to have a race car drive past you and like try to run you over and stuff. So that was, I hope he was watching, because we kind of compromise. We have a race car. I don't need to be run over. I mean, I'm sure there's people that want to run me over, but that's okay. But what are they saying? Oh, Kevin's back. Kevin's back. $40,000 on a racing engine for the drill team. That's about what a modified motor goes for. My Billy the Kid power plant was pretty doggone close to that. Performance Technology by Billy the Kid. good stuff. I know there's some teams on the tour that spend more than that on their motors. And like John Betts told me back in 1989 when I said, how much is this my motor going to cost? And he said, who do you want to beat? What do you mean? He goes, speed costs money. And it's dollars per cubic inch. So you tell me how much money you want to spend, you tell me who you want to beat, and then we'll go from there. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what's happening. But it's a very costly business, this oil racing thing, and I never thought I would spend what I spent on a blunderbuss motor in the entry-level division. It's in the rule book next to fire suits on that page there. Why it's there, I have no idea, because that's not where I put it. But anyway, but that's just what it is. It's a costly sport, and I think next week we're going to talk about, depending on which guest comes, and I haven't been confirmed yet, but we're going to talk about the cost of racing and what it actually costs, and not just here on Long Island, but at other racetracks too. I mean, a modified is a modified, and a late model is a late model, but there's other classes and other divisions that race all throughout this country. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. Let's see what they say now. There might be a line or whatever. Oh, yeah. Well, it was funny. There was a guy at Riverhead that actually did try to run me over caution. I felt the car brush against me, and I stepped forward just in time. But yeah. It is 24. There's some officials that are not happy that I'm going racing, but that's okay. And we'll see. They might try to. Not that they're going to run me over, but I don't know. And you never know. You know, I could be coming down pit road, and then I'm like, sun in my eyes, and maybe I'll run some of them over. Who knows? No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. But anyway. But it's all good. It's all good. So what do we got? We got a couple of minutes left. We got like 5 minutes left. So let's take our last break real quick. When we come back, we'll wrap it up, and we'll go from there. We'll be back. feedback. Tracy reminded me of something that I did many, many moons ago at Riverhead Raceway, and it was, I did it a handful of times, and I needed competitors to see what I saw. Now, for those who are not familiar with Riverhead Raceway, the ramp leading onto the racetrack, there's a platform right there, and that's between turns 3 and 4, and that's where I officiated from, because I didn't believe in going up to the tower and hiding from competitors, because if a competitor wanted to yell and scream and vent, then I would stand there and take it sometimes. And what I would do is I would take a driver who might have complained the most or had the most questions about decisions and calls, and I'd bring them up, and I'd say, listen, I want you to stand next to me. I want you to see what I see. And it seemed like every time the situation occurred on the racetrack, I turned to them and say, tell me what happened, because I didn't see it. I said, we're standing on top of the wall, literally, in turns 3 and 4. The incident happened in turn 3. How can you not see it? It was right in front of you. I didn't see it. We didn't see it. So I started asking the questions that drivers would say to me. You know, what are you blind? So I started doing it, and the guy's like, you win. I didn't see it. Because it's hard to focus on the entire racetrack. It's just hard. Whether it's a quarter mile, half mile, 50 mile, you need other people giving you feedback on that. So I did it with a few guys, and I'm not talking, you know, backmarker guys. I'm talking about championship drivers that I brought up to the ramp to watch the races with me. And as one guy said to me, he goes, I didn't see what happened, but with my experience, I could probably tell you what happened. And he was absolutely correct in that, because I mean, I wasn't experienced at winning races, but I was experienced at racing, I thought. And I could tell you what happened, because a lot of times I was one of those guys, you see, because there's 3 types of guy. There's the guy that caused it to happen, the guy who made it, made it happen, and one guy who wondered what the heck happened. I was always the guy who went, what the heck happened? You know, I'd be driving along, and all of a sudden, you know, I'd be, sideways, and cars would be bouncing off me. Yeah, I did it with Chris, and it was funny. I believe that's the year he won the championship, and he didn't qualify that night. And I thought it was a good year. Yeah, it was. It was. That he came up and watched, and he walked away and with a whole different understanding. And I think that day we both gained a mutual respect for each other, because up until then I think we were banging heads quite often, and in a good way, because when you have that kind of conflict, it's an attempt to gain common ground. And as a competitor, you have to push the envelope, and as an official, my job was to seal the envelope. And every once in a while, the envelope would open, and I'd have to push it down. And sometimes you have to agree to disagree. And I miss those days. I'll tell you when I look back on my racing, and I've been doing this in the 70s, 80s, this 5 decades I've been involved in racing, if you can believe that. 5 decades, 70s, 80s, 90s, the zeros, then the teens. My most fun in racing was from 1998 to 2002 when I was running Riverhead Raceway. I didn't have a lot of fun as a driver in the beginning, because I wrecked more than I did anything else. And then, of course, I had the injury, and the tour position became a job, and I didn't become an official because I needed a job. I became a touring official because I wanted to move up the ladder. So, in the field of officiating. So. My best times in racing were those years on top of a ramp at Riverhead, and a lot of people are probably surprised that I'm saying that, but it's true. And I worked with a good bunch of people, and some of them I became friends with over the years, and still have remained and kept those friendships. Some we became enemies, unfortunately for them. So it's one of those things. But anyway. I don't know. I think we're going to wrap this thing up. So I want to thank everybody for taking time in your busy schedules, coming to listen to Joe rant, sharing your thoughts and ideas, and talking racing. It's always fun to be able to do that and talk about the sport that we love, as auto racing. So again, I want to thank everybody coming on. I want you to all be safe this week. Keep DJ's recovery in your prayers. Hope for a speedy recovery. And pray for the family of the gentleman who didn't make it in that tragic accident. And don't Don't forget to tell somebody that you love them. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.